this video is called 3 top tips to not respond negatively when something unexpected happens. And so, before I get into the tips, I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that it is normal to not be okay with change, because first of all, our brain is designed to be negative, and that is because our brain is designed for survival. Yeah, we are not wired to be happy, or confident or successful, or just to cope with modern day life. Our brains are exactly the same now as they were when we were cavemen and women. So yeah, it is normal to not react positively or not be okay with change, because change is obviously unexpected if we aren't expecting it, and that can easily send us into fight or flight mode. Now, when we respond, when we go into fight or flight mode in our brain, we start operating from what I call the primitive brain. Okay, so your primitive brain is not a nice place to be, and a lot of people live their entire lives stuck in their primitive brain, and it is not nice because it's very negative. So when you are operating from your primitive brain, your brain is acting as if you are in survival mode, yeah? So, or fight or flight, same thing. So you can only respond negatively to situations, whether they're expected, whether it's day to day. If you're stuck in your primitive brain, then you're going to respond negatively, and you're going to experience far more negative emotions than if you aren't in your primitive brain. Okay, so I'll come to it in a bit, but the opposite, or the mode that you're operating from when you're not in your primitive brain, is called the intellectual mind, and that is the goal to be in. That's when life is so much better and easier, okay? But when you are stuck in fight or flight mode, as I said, the brain is very negative in this. When you're operating from this, it can only respond negatively. It can only think worst case scenario, because it's your brain trying to keep you alive. It doesn't know whether you are overreacting to a situation, which most of the time we are, because we subconsciously and automatically go into this fight or flight mode, even if it's completely unnecessary. Okay, and the only moods or the only ways that we can react when we are stuck in fight or flight mode is out of frustration, anger, irritability, all of those things at once. We can feel angry about something. We can feel anxious, very worried, and just overthink and get nervous about stuff. That's another an opt-out clause, the way our brain responds when we're in fight or flight mode. And the other one is low mood. If you just feel low and not happy, you're stuck in your primitive mind. And so, as I said, then it is normal for us to respond by dipping into our primitive brain if something unexpected happens. But through education, you can change that. So being here now, you're doing yourself a favor, because you're learning about your brain. And when you have that self-awareness, and you can absolutely change things and avoid dipping into your primitive brain when it's completely unnecessary. Okay? So the 3 tips that I'm going to give you tonight are all about what you're doing with your brain. It's not something physical that you can do, but it's a change, a shift that you can implement to make a small change in the way you think about things, but it will have a big impact if you keep these tips in mind. And feel free to watch this video as many times as you need to, because your brain likes repetition, and you will take in different bits each time you watch it. So yeah, go and watch it as many times as you need to really soak in this learning, because if you implement the changes that I suggest in this video, you can really, really help yourself and stop yourself dipping into your primitive brain unnecessarily. Okay? So perception is everything then. So number 1 is, my first tip is to maintain perspective, okay? Really think about this unexpected situation that has happened, that you didn't expect to happen. Is it really a big deal? Like, really? Because you choose how you react to every situation. And a good way for you to think about unexpected situations as they crop up is, will this be a problem in a year from now? If it's not, then you're sweating the small stuff and you're making life harder for yourself because you are getting stressed or annoyed or upset over something that really, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter. Okay, so maintain that perspective, ask yourself that question, zoom out a little bit and work out, am I really getting myself into a fluster and into fight or flight mode over something very trivial or something that's out of my hands? Another question is it something you can control? Because if it's not, if you're worrying about something that might happen, what's the point? Like, maintain that perspective. If you can't change it, there's absolutely no reason for you to spend your time worrying, okay? And when you are worrying, you are in your primitive mind. There is no doubt about it. Because when you're in your intellectual mind, you don't worry about the past or the future. You are able to be present, okay? And the problem with worrying is that your brain cannot tell the difference between real and imagination. So if you're stuck in your primitive brain and you're thinking worst case scenario, and that's what happens, you can't help it, your brain will think worst case scenario because it's a survival instinct. When you're doing that, your brain can't tell the difference between whether it's just a worry or whether it's actually happening. And every thought and emotion that you have has a chemical reaction in your body. And so if you're feeling anxious and over worrying and overthinking something, what's going on in your brain is that you are releasing unnecessary amounts of stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and that can make you exhausted, that can make you struggle with your sleep, that can induce brain fog, procrastination, poor concentration, so many different things. And also like physical things as well, like skin problems, pain conditions are much worse if you're in your primitive brain and therefore releasing stress hormones. What else? I think I said skin problems, but all sorts. The way our body processes food as well, and can cause problems with weight management and coping mechanisms. You can find it much harder to exercise self-control. All of these things stem from the fact that you're stuck in your primitive brain. And if you're being negative and thinking and worrying, you are in your primitive brain, but you're making it much, much harder for yourself. So tip number 1, just to clarify for you, is to maintain perspective. Will this be a problem in a year from now? Is it something I can control? If not, then just zoom out a little bit and exercise that sort of motto or mantra. Don't sweat the small stuff. Keep that perspective. It can make a massive difference. Number 2, in a similar vein, mindset is everything, okay? So how you respond in day-to-day life affects whether you're living in your intellectual mind, the positive part, or your primitive brain. And how you view and perceive situations can change and influence your state of mind massively, okay? So just know this. No situation, this unexpected event that can normally send you in a panic and dip into your primitive brain and release those stress hormones, that situation, whatever it is not negative. It is not. Nothing, no situation in life is positive or negative. The thing is how you respond to it. How you and your thoughts respond to any given situation are what makes it positive or negative. Okay, so the same event can happen and 2 people can respond to it completely differently, and that will influence their state of mind and their general happiness and whether they're in their intellectual mind or their primitive brain. It's all about perception, okay? So practice looking for the positives. This brings me onto my 3rd point. So number 2 is mindset is everything. Notice how you're responding to situations and question yourself. Am I being overly negative here? What's the positive in this situation? How can I reframe this to see the positive? And clients that I've worked with, this is a big element of the conscious work that I do with my clients. It has a massive impact because when you are changing how you perceive situations, it will have a massive impact, because every negative thought that you have goes into your stress bucket. Okay, so we all have a metaphorical stress bucket in our minds, and every negative thought that we have goes into that stress bucket. And that stress bucket fills up throughout the day. And the more full it is, the harder you find it to stay in your intellectual mind, and the harder you find it to cope with change and to cope with things in general, because if your stress bucket's full, you feel more overwhelmed, you feel stressed more easily. And so how to help yourself to maintain lower stress bucket levels is to try to think positively, because when you're thinking negatively and only seeing the negative in situations, every negative thought that you're having is going in that stress bucket, and it's filling up far more quickly than if you had a positive mindset. So this does bring me on to my third point, and that is to focus on the positives, okay? Somebody who's stuck in their primitive mind will not be able to see the positives like a person who is in their intellectual mind. Because when you're in your intellectual mind, you're able to stay present. You're not worrying about the past or the future. And when you're able to stay present, you are able to notice so much more in your surroundings. And you just experience life in a different way. It becomes clearer for you. You have more mental clarity. You have more happiness and more patience, more empathy, more joy, because you're not stuck in survival mode. When you're stuck in survival mode, as I said earlier, your brain is really releasing far too much stress hormones, and leaving you to not be able to see the big picture, and leaving you to really rely on coping mechanisms such as stress eating, or spending too much time on your phone, or procrastinating, or anything. Literally anything can be a coping mechanism. And if it's something that you're not happy that you're doing, but you're doing it to cope, then it's a coping mechanism, and it's a sign that you're in your primitive brain. So how to lift yourself up out of your primitive brain is to shift how you are responding to situations, and shift your mindset, and focus on the positives. Okay, this really, really does have an impact, because when you are focusing on the positive, you are really encouraging your brain to look for more positives, because positivity breeds positivity. Just like negativity breeds negativity, you want to avoid that, and you want to start to look for the positives in your life, because the more that you notice, the more that you will notice. And I get all of my clients to keep a positivity journal, and I get them to do this before they go to sleep at night. I get them to notice what's been good about their day and write it down, because it gets you to reflect on your day and look for the positives. And without doing this exercise, you can go to bed in your primitive mind thinking, oh, I've had a rubbish day, I'm exhausted, and just not really realising actually how good you've had it. You might have had a stressful half an hour in the morning, but actually if you're stopping and you're looking for the positives, there's often way more than you realise. And without doing this exercise, you spend more time being negative, because you don't realise all the positives that are around. Thanks for writing that, Sarah. Sarah says, I see so many positives every day now. Sarah started working with me months ago, and yeah, she started keeping this positivity journal, and she's just said so many changes have happened because she is being more positive. Hope you don't mind me sharing that, Sarah. I'm sure you don't, because you know you've been very open with me and all your feedback and everything. But yeah, it's just life changing when you become more positive. You build up that habit of being more positive, and then you start noticing more. And the more positive things that you notice, you switch that balance, to being more positive. And the less negatively you think, the less goes in your stress bucket. The more you're able to maintain lower stress levels, the more you're able to stay in your intellectual mind. And life is so much better when you're in your intellectual mind. And it builds resilience too, So when you are naturally more positive, you're able to be more resilient, because your stress bucket levels stay lower. So you've got far more in the tank for when you need that resilience to be there for you. Thanks for this comment. Same. Definitely things don't get me down like they did. I feel a lot happier because of it. Thanks, Vicky. So yeah, it really does help you to be more resilient. And there's so many benefits for being in your intellectual mind, and just having this awareness. So please, as I said earlier, please do feel free to watch this video a few times or twice, whatever, because there's so much in here that I've said that you won't pick up everything the first time round. It's amazing. Thanks for joining me, Guy. Brilliant. I'm so pleased to share this with you. And I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. If this is the first video that you're watching from me, you might be wondering, who am I, if somebody else has invited you? So I'm a solution-focused hypnotherapist. A lot of what I do, obviously I do hypnotherapy with clients, but I teach about the mind, because that's empowering. When you understand how your mind works, it's a game changer. And so part of what I want to do is to have this free group where I share my knowledge, because it is so needed. We all know how to lead a physically healthy life, but unfortunately society is so behind in terms of our general understanding of the brain, and how to lead mentally healthy lives. So this group can grow as fast as it needs to, because I'm happy to share this information for free with everybody out there. And so if you've watched this and you know that you have a friend in mind or a family member in mind that would really benefit from watching this, please feel free to send them an invite, let them know about it, send them an invite. And absolutely everybody is welcome to watch this and all of my videos. Thank you very much, Guy. That's a lovely comment. Also, just worth mentioning, I have a free sleep hypnotherapy audio as well. You don't have to be a client of mine to access that. There is a link somewhere if you scroll down a little bit, and I put it in my welcome messages these days as well. But once this is uploaded, I'll pop it in the caption as well, so you don't need to go searching for it. Just click on the link, and that will send to your inbox. Listen to it at night when you go to sleep. It helps you to process what's in your stress bucket in the same way that your brain does that whilst you sleep. So it helps you to have a really nice, refreshing, restorative sleep. And if you struggle at night with waking up and struggling to get back to sleep, it's a good sign that your stress bucket levels are too high. So don't fret about it, just hit play and I'll send you off to sleep again. I'll pop that link in the group, in the text above once this is uploaded. If you've not got that yet, I do really recommend going and downloading that. But I need to go now, so I've got a client in a moment. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me a message, or pop them in the comments. I'll come back and answer them. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you are watching this on replay, don't forget to pop #replay in the comments. And yeah, just lastly, if you know somebody that will benefit from my videos, please feel free to invite them into the group. So yeah, it's all about your mind and your mindset. So just to sum up before I finish, number one, maintain perspective. Will this be a problem in a year from now? If not, and if it's something that you can't change, move on. Let yourself move on, because the more you think negatively and worry about a situation, remember, your brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination. So you're creating more problems for yourself by continuing to worry. Number two, mindset is everything. How you respond to a situation is your choice, okay? Number three, focus on positives. Look for positive things. Be grateful. Notice what is good in your life every day. The more you do that, the more you will build resilience. And if you're not doing it already, keep a positivity journal. Notice 5 things that have been good about your day every day and write them down before you go to sleep and watch what impact it has. Lastly, download my audio. The link will be in the text. I'm going to go now. I will see you next Thursday for another video. Thank you so much for watching and see you all soon. Bye.